It's the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Support for this podcast comes from Invent Together. I bet you didn't know that inventing activity by Black inventors peaked in 1899, and it has never recovered. Black and Hispanic college graduates patented half the rate of white college graduates. That's just one of the reasons why you need to know about Invent Together. When our patent system gets more diverse, our nation will get stronger and more successful. Find out how you can help diverse inventors and unleash economic opportunity at inventtogether.org.
You are Locked On Padres, your daily San Diego Padres podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of the Locked On Padres podcast, which is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day for Thursday, July 15th. As always, I'm your host with sometimes, occasionally, but certainly not always the most, Javier Reyes. You might be familiar with some of my baseball-related work at places like Baseball FYI, Friars on Base, Off the Bench Baseball, or more recently just launched Just Baseball. Very, 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 very good website there, guys, although I do admit I'm biased. And also, if you might be familiar with the more pop culture realm and entertainment avenues of the world, well, then maybe you might want to check out my work at places like Mental Floss, Nerdist, Inverse, Bloody Disgusting, Film Credit, and more, and hopefully many more to come. But guys, most importantly, you can check out and follow the Twitter page for the show, which is at @LO_Padres, or my personal account, which is at Javapeno, and that's spelled JAVIIPENO. And if you feel so inclined, follow me on there, hit me up on there with any questions, comments, concerns you might have, and I'll do my very best to get back to you. Love interacting with you guys and what have you. Really, really fun stuff. Go listen to my 300th episode mailbag if you didn't already. Today's episode, though, however, guys, is brought to you by Locked On MLB Prospects. It's MLB draft season. I don't know if you heard. A bunch of draft picks, super, like, all this sorts of stuff. You got the Kumar Rocker. You got the what's that dude's name? Jack Leiter. There we go. You know, I don't know too much about prospects, but you know who does know a lot about prospects, guys? That's Arm Layton, and he brings you player interviews, farm system breakdowns every day. Subscribe to Locked On MLB Prospects on the Odyssey app or wherever you get your podcasts. And today, guys, you're not going to be hearing from just me for much longer. We're talking with Gabrielle Starr, who is the former host of Locked On Red Sox, and we talk. It's basically a mid-season recap extravaganza. In part, it's going to be two parts. Part 1 today, part 2 tomorrow. Today, I know we do a little bit of NL West rivalry type stuff because she's got like some thoughts on the Dodgers and some thoughts on the All-Star game, and we just talk about our favorite storylines. And then in part 2 tomorrow, we talk about trade deadline predictions and all that stuff. So a huge talk. So without further ado, guys, let's not waste any more time. Here we go. All right, everybody, as promised, as prophesized, it's been a long, it's been a desert over at Locked On lately. That's what I'll say. It's everyone's scrambling for water. They're looking for food supplies because we lost our greatest warrior, I would argue, our greatest member. So everything's been in disarray and chaos. It's been like the show Loki. It's been just going nuts. And that's because we lost the mother effing star girl, Gabrielle Starr, formerly the host of Locked On Red Sox. But she's joining me now to talk about baseball stuff. Gabrielle, what's going on?
Hi, buddy. It's so nice to be back. Thank you for that warm introduction. It's been, I think my first day on my new job was like exactly 5 weeks ago. So I miss you guys. And it's really nice, even to be on the outside looking in. It's really nice to be back.
Yeah, so let's just really quickly, because we're going to talk about some general baseball stuff, just our thoughts and kind of like a first half season in retrospective, both in terms of specific players and also just like how we felt watching baseball this year. But like, what's going on with you? What are you doing? Well, why did you abandon me, Gabrielle? What happened? Now I'm stuck with these other two Boston schmucks. Now I don't have to deal with just one Boston person. Now I have to deal with two.
I know.
Like, what did you do to me?
I will say, Jason and Lauren, who are the new hosts of Locked On Red Sox, are two lifelong friends of mine, and they are both brilliant. They are both amazing reporters in the Boston media, and I adore them. I recommended them to replace me, and they are doing an amazing job, and everyone should go and listen. And of course, there's my dog endorsing it as well. Hold on one second. I'm sorry.
No problem.
Mike just went outside to put laundry in, and I've trying to throw peanuts for her to eat so that she doesn't do this, but instead she's ignoring the peanuts and just being a little shit.
Sorry, I could edit everything.
Yeah, I know. I figured. Well, he gave her like a piece of chicken jerky so that she'd be quiet when he went out to do the laundry outside, but like on the other floor. But she ate it so fast it didn't matter. So now she's
Frank.
I know, Frank. You know what? Literally everyone walks up to us and calls her Frank, and I'm like, she's a girl.
Yeah. It's been kind of a lonely place. We're transitioning back into this. We had to wait a little bit for your doggo, your dog to calm down. But I guess let me get into it. What are you doing now? What have you been up to? Why did you abandon me? What's going on?
Well, aside from the crushing guilt of abandoning you and our Locked On fam, which I will say it was a really, really sad decision. I know, because you were asking me for a while what I was doing and why I was leaving. Yeah. You texted me a lot and I couldn't tell you because I was dealing with contract stuff and I didn't want to, I also was like, honestly dreading it. Like the day that I messaged our entire MLB Locked On DM and told you guys, I honestly cried. I was with you guys for about a year and a half, and during a crazy year on top of that. You know what? I really think that all of us having to kind of come together and figure out how we were going to make sports content, especially baseball content, when we didn't even know if baseball was going to happen last year. Like you, me, and John from New York Rangers.
John, my guy.
We did a movie bracket. Like we literally watched, dozens of hours of sports movies and podcasted together because we needed to figure out things to talk about. And I think that us having to find content when there was no sports in order to do our jobs and to help our network really brought us all together, especially the MLB family. And that's why it was so hard for me. But to answer your question, I'm now an editor at Fansided. I am both writing, but also I oversee a bunch of writers, and it's amazing. And I love it there, but I do miss you guys a lot. And it was not easy, but growth rarely is. And it was time for me to take a step back to what I originally got into sports to do, which is to write and to edit.
Hey, perfectly understandable. It was a wild day. I feel like when that happened too. And there's been all sorts of everyone's like, oh my gosh, I have to get used to not asking Gabrielle for everything. And she was helping us out with all the templates and everything. For those who don't know, a lot of the graphics you see, Gabrielle worked on when, back when she was still here, like all the little new episode intros you guys might see on the Twitter. Go follow that at LO_Padres on Twitter. And everything, pretty much all sorts of things for the what was it? What was one that you did for? Even like the Christmas one, like stuff like that, right?
Yeah, I did those. I forgot about those.
Yeah, like little
because I was social. Stuff, I was the social manager for our MLB fam as well as doing Red Sox. So it was, I don't know if a lot of people knew that, but I was doing all of our social for MLB as well as hosting Red Sox. So I got to know, I already knew you really well because I was doing the bracket with you. Like you were one of the first people I actually did crossovers with because we did that. We decided to do that bracket, the three of us. And that took us through 3 months of the pandemic.
Because we also were only doing 3 episodes at a time. So what happened was
one a week.
So basically it took up it depends on how everybody used it. Yeah, we were doing a lot. I have to go look up exactly.
Well, no, but then you remember that we went back.
Feel free.
When we went back and we did the Hoosiers hate cast after.
Oh, that's right.
People who didn't listen to this, which you should go back because we went so hard. It was
on my feed. It's called Sports Movie Madness. Locked On Padres. Just go type it in, and you'll find it. There's a ton of parts. It's through months, and there's also one about the Hoosiers hate cast, which was
because it was the number 1 seed on that bracket. And we knocked it out immediately. It was that and Any Given Sunday. That was the first matchup that we discussed. And all 3 of us unanimously, I think, went for Any Given Sunday instead of Hoosiers, which was kind of crazy. My mom was appalled, by the way, as she often is.
My mom was a little upset too. She's like, Hoosiers was good. I'm like, when'd you last see it? She said, oh, a while ago.
Yeah, like when it came out. And so, yeah, I think we went back and we did like an entire episode dedicated to that. And I think a few of the other movies that we just hated, like Tin Cup. And
what we ended up doing was, for those who don't know, the Hoosiers Hate Cast, go looked up that episode. It was basically, I came up with the idea where I was just like, what if we're going to go through all 63 other movies and say whether or not we liked Hoosiers better or worse than that movie? We went through every single one.
God,
and there was only like, there was maybe 10 that we were like, okay, I might take
Wasn't
Hoosiers
it like
over
a 60 something movie bracket?
It was like, it had to be a
64
like 60.
or
It was
something.
insane. It was insane. It was so many.
And then we also did something when Chadwick Boseman died. We did a rewatch of 42 and we talked about 42. And that was really special because I loved that movie so much.
Forgot about that. Jeez Louise.
Hold up a minute. Hold up a minute. Hold up a minute.
Today's episode, guys, is brought to you in part by Fully Loaded Chew. Fully Loaded Chew is tobacco-free, long cut, and pouches that give you the same pack, dip, spit, and buzz you're used to without tobacco. Available in 9 flavors, Fully Loaded Chew is made with all food ingredients and tobacco-free nicotine, the purest form of nicotine available. It's the only moist nicotine pouch on the market. All other nicotine pouches are dry, white pouches. Nothing dips, spits, and packs like Fully Loaded. And Fully Loaded Chew is offering Locked On Padres listeners a special offer. Right now, you can try a can for just $1. That's right, just $1. Go to www.fullyloadedchew.com and use promo code LOCKEDON. Just $1 and free shipping if you use the code LOCKEDON at checkout. Next time you go for a dip, make it Fully Loaded Chew. And now, switching gears, everybody. We're talking to you about cars, and more specifically, Rock Auto. With the ever-increasing numbers of makes and models, it's now impossible for your local chain auto parts store to stock all the parts you need. All these intimidating questions, EX, LX, 4-wheel, 2-wheel, 8-wheel, quadruple wheel, caterpillar wheel, whatever kind of weird questions they ask you. Well, you have rockauto.com to help you out with all that stuff, and you can use that on your laptop or your mobile devices. Save time and money, guys. Why choose to spend up to 30%, 50%, even 100% more for the same parts from a chain store or car dealership? Rock Auto is also a family business. They've been serving auto parts customers online for 20 years. It's a whole long time. They're reliably low prices, and they have everything you could need, from brake parts, tail lamps, motor oil, and even new carpet. Go explore their easy-to-use website today to find the solution for your auto part needs. Go to rockauto.com right now, guys, and see all the parts available for your car or truck. Write Locked On in their How'd You Hear About Us box so they know we sent you. Amazing selection, reliable low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. rockauto.com. Yeah, but bottom line, if anybody can't tell by listening to this, we've been talking a lot. We did a lot of crossovers for all sorts of things through Locked On LB and stuff, but I do want to talk to you a little bit about the fan side stuff before we segue into general baseball stuff, because apparently you've been writing a whole bunch of stuff, right? You've been writing like a machine. I've been writing too, not in the, as I just hear a bang in the background.
Thunder and lightning.
The thunder and lightning.
Yeah.
There it is again. But I write just a fraction of the amount as Gabrielle does, because I'm a lazy dog, as everybody knows. But you told me that you had a piece that actually relates a little bit to National League rivalry and stuff. And you know me, I mean, actually, you don't know that I've been increasingly getting more and more fueled by rage. Like I'm Anakin Skywalker when it comes to the Dodgers. I really am.
Are people underestimating your power?
They might be. They might be. I don't care if they have the high ground. I don't care if the Dodgers won last year. My thing is like, congratulations. You won 6 years after people stopped caring that you guys were good. Congrats. Dodgers, it only took you a 60-game season. See, it's flowing through me. I can't help it. It's not as bad as the Boston. But anyway, you had an article you told me that you wrote about recently that has to do with the rivalry. So what exactly did you discover? What did you write about, Gabrielle?
Well, so, obviously the Dodgers and Padres Southern California National League rivalry is very strong. And both of your teams, and we're obviously not going to get in so much into the person that we're talking about, but both of your teams made huge upgrades to their starting rotations over the offseason. And now, of course, the Dodgers are in a position where they once again probably are going to need to fill a role in their starting rotation. And a lot of people on Twitter are saying that the reason that Max Scherzer started the All-Star game for the National League on Tuesday night is because the Dodgers are buttering up the Nationals to convince them to trade them Max Scherzer at the deadline, because Scherzer's in the final year of his contract and the Nationals are not contenders this year. And it's kind of been surmised that the Nationals and Scherzer have an agreement that they would kind of rent him out to a contending team because, you know, he's 36 years old. He doesn't have that many seasons left, even though he's still Mad Max. But the idea being that, you know, for the rest of his contract right now, they will loan him out to a contending team so that he has the opportunity to get another ring, maybe. And then they will sign him again when he's a free agent during the offseason so that he can finish out his career as a National, which is pretty much the thing that he wants. You know, he's very close with Mike Rizzo, the GM, and this has kind of been speculated for a while. But when he was the starter for the game last night, when his stats display that he, of all the starting pitchers in the game last night for the National League, he wasn't the one who deserved it the most in terms of what he's actually done this season. And I understand there was no game last year and it would have been Dave Martinez as the manager, and then Scherzer would have started the game. And so Dave Roberts kind of said, well, I'm doing this out of respect to Dave Martinez. I'm like, well, if you really want to respect Dave Martinez, why don't you have him on your coaching staff? Because this feels like you're trying to butter up Max Scherzer. Not that you're trying to, be nice to Dave Martinez. And of course, you know, now that I'm covering the Phillies a lot, Zach Wheeler, most innings pitched in all of Major League Baseball this year. He's like 4th in National League in ERA, 5th overall. He's 3rd overall in MLB in strikeouts, right behind Cole and DeGrom by literally like 1 strikeout. And he should have been either the starter or at least gotten to pitch like 2nd. And he pitched in the 9th inning with 2 outs already on the board. Meanwhile, Corbin Burns got to pitch 2 whole innings. And you can speak a little bit to the fact that Dave Roberts historically is not great at making pitching decisions, but also it's just really rude to Zach Wheeler. I mean, he earned, if Jacob DeGrom isn't in this game, which he decided he wasn't going to be, that start goes to Zach Wheeler based on the numbers alone. And this isn't to say that Max Scherzer isn't amazing. He's one of the greatest pitchers of our era. He has 3 Cy Youngs. He's been an all-star every single year since 2013. But slighting the guy who's actually earned it this year just to either make up for last year or because you want him on your team to replace Trevor Bauer is just a really uncool move. But if you look at Twitter, if you type Dave Roberts, Max Scherzer into Twitter, it's literally hundreds of people being like, they're just doing this now so that the trade deadline, blah, blah, blah. And I mean, honestly, it makes sense because where else are they going to find a pitcher of the caliber of Max Scherzer for a short-term rental?
I'll tell you one thing. So first of all, I have a couple thoughts. So firstly, it's that this is just classic Dodgers. Like, I will say though, all their fans that claim that they're not scared of the Padres is the other thing. Like I said, the hatred is flowing through me. It's one of the funnier, like, telling it to myself
about
things.
The Padres, why are you talking about the Padres?
Yeah, why are you talking about the Padres? And also, you know who is scared of the Padres? The Dodgers front office, because they're smart. That's how they got here. They're like, let's not deal with this scary team that's on the come up. Let's keep adding stuff. And we don't have to get into one of the guys that they added necessarily right now, but yeah, it's like that would be a very smart thing for them to do. And they just lost Dustin May, all that stuff, right? Like, and Trevor Bauer too. So it would make sense.
Definitely not put those 2 losses in the same category, though, of course, because poor Dustin May had to get surgery, and obviously
Trevor Bauer is a whole nother ball yarn and issue, which I've talked about a couple times before, and has had his suspension or his administrative leave has been extended to the 27th of July as of today, which is the right decision. But yeah, I think definitely, I mean, you're a Marvel person. I'm a Marvel person. Loki in the original Avengers movie, when he's like, an ant has no quarrel with a boot. And Samuel L. Jackson's like, so you mean to step on us or whatever he says. I've seen that movie way too many times. But I mean, you know, the Dodgers have been the boot for like over a decade. I mean, they didn't win anything for a really long time, but they've been the boot in terms of the division for a really long time. And
they want to act like the Padres are ants, but they're not. They're just a whole different pair of shoes, as Dennis Eckersley would say.
100%. And we all know how that movie ended, don't we now? So the Dodgers should be careful.
Yes, but I'm not caught up on Loki, so don't spoil it.
Oh, I won't. I actually just finished it before we started recording this. Really cool stuff. I won't say a single word.
Hold up a minute. Hold up a minute. Hold up a minute.
Bet Online, guys, you ever heard of it? It's the fastest and easiest way to bet on all of your sports action. You got baseball season in full swing. You got games coming back. We have the All-Star break. We got games coming back tomorrow. And you can check all the action at Bet Online. Get all the latest news, odds, and info for all your sporting needs. Not just baseball, though, but the NBA, NHL, or UFC MMA action. Whatever you need, they've got it. Before the next pitch, head over to Bet Online on your laptop or mobile device and check out all the great sporting news, sign-up bonuses, and contest information. Don't sit on the sidelines anymore, as this is your chance to get into the game as teams prep for their runs to the sacred land of championship glory. Head to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Remember to use that promo code LOCKEDON, guys, when you do so. Bet Online, your online sportsbook experts.
This episode is brought to you by HP Instant Ink. No one is reading your mind, but HP Instant Ink knows when your printer is running low and sends you new cartridges, so you never have to think about ink. Save up to 50%. You'll pay less than $5 a month for ink and never run out again. Find out if your printer is eligible and enroll today at hpinstantink.com. Conditions apply. For details, visit hp.com/instantink Spotify.
But also, I'm going to link in the description for everybody this article that Gabrielle wrote. Definitely go check that out. She's great. I also wanted to talk about, I guess, just general stuff in baseball. I just want to talk about what it's been like watching the season. And I guess, like, what are the two headlines? What are like the two stories for you as someone who's watching baseball, and you're not just doing Red Sox stuff, by the way? I mean, as evidenced by you just talking about the Scherzer thing, talking about kind of everything. You do Phillies stuff. You're doing, I imagine you did Rockies stuff. You probably did Dodgers stuff, which I'll, of course, protest against, but whatever.
I have not done Dodger stuff, actually.
Oh, well, then there you go, folks. There you go.
Well, no, I will amend that. I will say, when the Trevor Bauer news broke, I was very flattered. The two editors of Fansided's Dodger site are both men, and they came to me and asked me if I would serve as their editor on their initial piece about Bauer being placed on administrative leave, because they said, we really want a woman's opinion on this, especially because you're so vocal about these issues. And I was really flattered, and I think the piece came out really well. Obviously, I know you are not a Dodgers fan, but this is important baseball topic for everybody. And those two guys, Thomas and Adam, they are also the editors of our Yankees site, Yanks Go Yard. And I know that you, in addition to being a Padres fan, are a Yankees fan because you have moderately bad taste. And but yeah, so
I gotta please
Dodgers
let my mom
content.
Let me stay in the house. So
yeah, exactly. That is the only Dodgers content that I have done so far this season. It's been a lot of Phillies, Red Sox, Team Israel baseball for the Olympics, and All-Star content, obviously, and now trade deadline content, because it's about to get crazy.
So let's, I guess, without further ado, let's talk a little bit about some general baseball. Let's start first, before we get into the trade deadline, just a tad bit, get your takes on that, because I've already talked about some of my Padres related ones, but let's talk about two storylines. If you had to say, what are the two things that define the first half of the MLB season for you? Go for it. And I'll even allow just this once, you can talk about the Red Sox if you'd like.
Oh, well, that's awful magnanimous of you. I will say, do you remember when the social team had all of you send in those MLB bold prediction videos to me?
Yes, I do. Yes.
And my bold prediction for Locked On Red Sox, because of course I had to make my own video, was the Red Sox are going to be good and fun to watch. And I was just trying to be positive because, last year they were really bad. And it was my first season hosting the show, and everyone was like, oh, you're so negative. And I was like, please tell me how to be positive about a 60-game season in which my team, less than 2 years removed from winning a franchise record 108 games in a World Series, has now lost Mookie Betts and Alex Cora and Brock Holt and like your entire pitching staff, and Chris Sale has Tommy John, and like, what do you want me to be positive about?
Yeah.
So I was kind of playing into those reviews a little bit by like being like, the Red Sox are going to be fun, but I also was hopeful because I liked some of their offseason acquisitions. They've been extremely fun. They still leave too many bases loaded situations for my taste, but I'm a perfectionist, and I'm only happy when they're winning by like 8 million runs and have struck out everybody, because I want it all the time. I mean, I grew up watching Pedro, so of course I'm like very high standards with my pitching, and I'm very high standards with my 2-out extra base hitting with David Ortiz. So pleasant surprise there. The Red Sox have been good. A little scuffling lately, and they called up one of their top prospects today ahead of them being the only team that has a game tomorrow. It's them and the Yankees tomorrow afternoon, Thursday evening. The rest of the league, I think the most interesting thing for me has been watching different managers like Tony La Russa with the White Sox, Dusty Baker with the Astros, kind of seeing these teams that picked up older managers and how they're doing, and whether or not the teams are winning in spite of them or because of them. Obviously those two have managed for such a long time and they have a lot of experience, but they also might not be the best at connecting. I think this is more La Russa than Baker, because Baker's awesome, but also Baker like invented the high five apparently. So there's that. But whether or not their teams are winning in spite of them or because of them, and seeing how important a manager's ability to connect with their players is, watching the Red Sox go from John Farrell to Alex Cora was a really stark change in terms of how he was able to connect so much better with them than Farrell was, just because he's a young Spanish speaking guy, the first Latino manager in franchise history. And like, you see how guys like Xander and Devers really blossomed under him versus how they were with Farrell. I mean, Xander was great regardless, but they each had hits in the All-Star game last night, and Devers doubled, and I think Xander had an RBI, or I don't know. It got confusing at the end because those couldn't stop staring at those jerseys. But I've been very interested.
Gosh, yes.
I know, so bad. But I've been very interested watching managers around the league, seeing AJ Hinch with the Tigers, and also just, I'm a lot more curious about other teams than I used to be. I used to be very Red Sox focused, and it's been very interesting covering the Phillies primarily because they're really one of these teams. Since they won the division in 2011, which is crazy that that's a decade ago, they have really been so mediocre, like every year. They're either a 500 team or lower every season over the last decade since that division title. And no matter what they do, their rebuild attempts just kind of fall flat. They're not good at developing pitchers. They drafted like 13 pitchers 2 days ago, earlier this week. And it's just very interesting to see teams. I think when you come from a big market fan base with a team that's had a lot of success over most of my life, or, half of my life now, it's very interesting to step into a different fan base and just see people who are so beleaguered and just like so accustomed to mediocrity. And it doesn't mean that they don't have hope. Phillies fans are so invested in their team. But I think that they're just so accustomed now to like, we're happy if our team is just at 500. They were celebrating beating the Red Sox this weekend because it got them back to 500. And that's crazy for me because I come from a fan base where 500 isn't good enough. And, going in October every couple years is the norm now, and winning a World Series every couple years is the norm now, and having, the best of everything. And so, and I know that sounds really like, I don't take that for granted. I know how entitled it sounds. It's what I was born into. Like, I can't really help it, but it's very interesting to go from that to covering a team where you're just kind of mired in treading water for years.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, like, it's been crazy. And with the Red Sox thing, it's definitely not something that people expected. I, for one, am enjoying the Yankees hysteria going on right now.
Oh my God, I'd cry.
It's even like, because while I do, the only thing carrying, it's like a flicker of light of the Yankees thing in me. And a lot of it is because I just want the Red Sox to be miserable. And I know that the Mets is not quite the same doing well. I know New York and Boston is a famous rivalry and across most sports, honestly, in a lot of ways. But like there's something about Mets versus Red Sox that's not quite the same. So even if they did well, the Red Sox
Mets
fans,
and Red Sox, they're united in their hatred of the Yankees. I mean,
that's a problem. Yeah, it's like the enemy.
When we play each other, we all chant "Yankees suck" together.
Yeah.
And they're not even there, which is kind of hilarious. I think.
It's one of those things. And I actually watched live both two collapses. It's something to behold. Let me tell you. I don't know if you've watched because it's just become a thing where like I want to tune in. There's no Padres game, but I want to see what's going on. Like, what are they going to do? I tuned in for. I think it was the end of the I didn't get to see Jared Walsh's grand slam off of Chapman, but I got to see the ensuing part after that. I did get to see Pete Alonso tying the game. And then I did get to see the Astros one, which I put on with my mom from the very beginning, immediate first batter. And I was just like, look, my mom hates Aaron Boone, for the record, for everybody. She's just like, I don't like this guy. He's so boring. And I don't think anyone would dissent that opinion, but it was breathtaking to watch. I must say, I was just like, this is incredible. I don't know why they haven't taken him out yet. This is just madness. Not that the Astros are like a team we're all going to root for, but that kind of transitions into some of the things that I found interesting about this first half. This is also first half most interesting storylines minus Ohtani. That's the rule because Ohtani is clearly Ohtani's the number one. No. Yeah, it's clearly.
We should have
Ohtani's
had that. You should
one.
Put that disclaimer at the beginning. Like put it in the bio on megaphone. Do the whole thing.
And cut, everybody. That about does it for part one of my discussion with the mother effing star girl, Gabrielle Starr, talking about recap and all this stuff. But before we kind of wind this whole shindig down, let me talk to you about something important. Giannis Antetokounmpo, he blocks the Phoenix Suns, much to my chagrin, from going up 3-1, guys. That's on the Locked On Today podcast. Get more of the sports news you need in less time with the Locked On Today podcast. Follow it on the Odyssey app or wherever you get your podcasts. Under 20 minutes, all your sports news. Peter Bukowski kicks ass over there. In terms of the future of this podcast, guys, of course, part 2 of my discussion with Gabrielle going to go up tomorrow. We talked for a long time, and we talked for a long time off air, I guess. There was so much other stuff that was just, regular just catching up and stuff, and I miss her. It was fun having her on again. We got this big old Washington series coming up, and I just had Josh Neighbors on a few days ago, it feels like, and so I guess I'll wait a little bit longer before talking to my buddy Josh, the coward that he is, who feared. He said, I would rather have Trey Turner, put him in the start. I said, okay, man, you know what I mean? Then take him over Tatis. Say it. And he couldn't say it. You know why? Because he's wrong, ladies and gentlemen. And this weekend, they're going to kick the Nationals' ass. All right, that's what's going to happen. But, yeah, so that about does it for today's edition of the Locked On Padres podcast, the only pod that may be better than the Padres themselves. Remember to subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your podcasts from: Stitcher, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Himalaya, Overcast, wherever you get them. If you don't mind, send me some 5-star reviews in the Apple Podcasts app. I would greatly, greatly appreciate that. Follow the show or myself on Twitter. And until next time, stay safe and, of course, stay faithful. My Friday Faithful homies, take care.